goal is to bring value because it doesn't need my money. It's a small amount. But for me, if I invest in this company, then I will put all my efforts in order to support these specific companies here in New York on the ground, as I supported hundreds of companies during the last 10 years.
Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Just sit back, relax, and learn from the leaders of today. It's a journey. Each one is different, unique, inspiring. Let's get started. This episode is powered by J Ventures, a community-driven VC fund in Silicon Valley in partnership with Leumi Tech, sponsored by Homeward Ventures, Hippo Insurance, Upwest Labs, Synergy Global, Hillel at Stanford, Leap, Birthright Excel, Serona Partners, and in media partnership with C-Tech. Welcome to 20-Minute Leaders, and meet my good friend Guy Franklin, founder and general partner of Israeli Mapped in New York Ventures. Guy is the founder and general partner of Israeli Mapped in New York, an interactive platform of the Israeli startups operating in New York. The platform serves as a one-stop shop which connects the startups to the local ecosystem in NYC, including investors, corporates, and business opportunities. The platform Franklin created received several awards and recognitions, as this was something that changed the conversation about Israel and continues to promote the Israeli startup community in the world. Guy was named recently in the 10 most influential Israelis in tech in America by Yediot Ahronoth, the leading newspaper in Israel.
Guy Franklin, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. Thank you so much for joining me all the way from New York City. How are you?
I'm good. Here it's morning. In Israel afternoon. I'm good, and thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to have you here, Guy. And first I want to start with a thank you. You hosted me so kindly a few weeks ago when you extended an invitation to some phenomenal events that you were hosting in New York with the community and the ecosystem that you've built over there, supporting the Israeli ecosystem in New York, and visiting the NASDAQ and the conference with Randy Zuckerberg and the president and President Driven, etc. So really phenomenal work that you've been doing. But I think that the journey that you're in, going from an accountant to now, managing an incredible ecosystem and making amazing investments, I think it's just such an awesome journey. So, Guy, thank you very, very much for joining me here.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for the kind introduction.
Of course.
As you said, I relocated to New York 10 years ago to work as an accountant in EY here in New York. After working in EY in Tel Aviv for 7 years in Tel Aviv, I relocated to New York to be part of the startup group in EY New York. But then what I realized in my first year or two here in New York, that there is a huge trend that started back then of Israeli startups that are relocating to New York City. And my day job was in EY, but in the weekends, I decided to build a platform in order to map the Israeli startup ecosystem in New York, and to have like a simple interactive map that shows dots, pins on the map of New York with all the Israeli startups that are operating in New York. I built it. I
But I
called
have to
it.
ask, I have to stop you already there and ask why. Why do that? Why decide that you're going to double your workload besides having a full-time job and working on an ecosystem that it wasn't very clear yet that this was going to turn out to be a huge success?
That's a great question. So the main two reasons I did it was first to show the Israeli success to the world. I realized back then there were 56. That's the exact number. 56 Israeli startups
Wow.
here in New York. Today, by the way, there are over 350 Israeli startups in New York, and it's growing
Amazing.
every day, I would say. Even now, maybe another new Israeli startup just landed here in JFK. So basically, to show the Israeli success to the world, there are Israeli startups here in New York, to expose them, to show that the Israeli ecosystem has roots not only in Israel, but also here in New York. That's from one end. But the second reason, which is more important, was to connect the entrepreneurs, the founders, the ecosystem, the Israeli ecosystem in New York, like 7 years ago. It was not what it is today, that everyone is connected and there are so many startups. I felt that there were groups of founders that knew each other, but not everyone was connected. So that was another reason. And the platform I created is, it's an online, but the activities I did physically here in New York on the ground, in addition to the online platform, that's what gave the platform its validity, I would say, meaning that I connected the founders, I invited them. One of the goals, as you said, and give an example, if a founder in the cyber industry is relocating to New York, in order to to say to not to do all the mistakes that the founders that relocated prior to him and did some mistakes, they learned some lessons. He can save all that time and consult with them, and then focus on the business, avoiding doing some mistakes, and get connections to investors, potential clients, talents, even PR and different media channels. So the goal was to have like a smooth landing pad for future entrepreneurs and also to help the existing ones here in New York.
I love it, but the journey doesn't stop there. So you're creating the map, and you're now at this epicenter, facilitating the understanding of what is happening around the New York community for Israeli startups. But you don't stop there. What do you learn first, just from the work that you've done up until that point? What do you learn about the Israeli ecosystem, about New York, that is not very trivial?
So what I learned about the Israeli startup ecosystem specific in New York, and I will compare it to other, other countries that have also, New York is a global place. There are startups from all over the world. But I realized that the Israeli ecosystem and the Israeli founders, and not only the founders, the executives, and also the other employees, they are different from other communities in terms of that they would like to help each other, really supporting each other, even for free, for nothing. Just if there is an entrepreneur that built a company 10 years ago, he will do everything he can to support a young entrepreneur. And I will not say which other country, but there was a funny story because there were a few startups from a country in Europe, and they wanted me to reach out to someone who did it very big from the country here in New York. And when I reached out to him, I asked myself why they don't reach him, why they don't reach him directly, why they ask me to go out and talk with him for them. And when I talked with him, he told me, "Oh, sorry, I don't want to be associated with my origin, and I will skip this opportunity." And for me, it was crazy to hear that. In Israel, it's the opposite. If I reach out to a founder that, I don't know, did an IPO from an Israeli startup, and I will invite him to talk with a group of Israeli founders and just look at. Of course, he will come and he will, even he will even like cancel a few meetings on that day, and he will come and he will speak with them.
100%.
So the Israeli startup ecosystem is it's unique, and I learned that a lot of people would like to connect, and they are looking for these opportunities. And also, I found out that almost every Israeli that is looking for a job in New York is looking at the platform and reaching out to me. When I built it, I didn't thought about the talent side or the jobs. I would say the career opportunities, but that's I would say almost the number one reason why people are going to the platform, from junior to even to CEOs and executives that are looking to see what are the opportunities. I found out that investors that are looking to invest specific in Israeli startups, even when they Google, they see the platform, they reach out to me and ask for my advice. Also, corporates that are looking to embed new technologies reach out to me. So it's kind of, I will not say that I built the ecosystem because it was exist. I just connected it.
Phenomenal. Uh, Now, you don't stop just in the facilitating the ecosystem and embracing it and growing it, but then you're actually going to take an active role in the financial side of things, and also, in the actual tangible partnership with companies. Where did this thing come from? The investing in startups and forming groups to create positive investment strategies.
Yeah, so that's a great question. You have great questions, and and it's good. So I would say that the evolution of Israeli Map to New York, which started with a platform that I did in addition to my day job in EY or at Sosa. After EY, I was the managing director of Sosa New York. So in addition to my work in these places, I built the platform. First, I helped the entrepreneurs, as I mentioned, but then over the years, what I saw that the entrepreneurs that I supported them in so many aspects when they just started in New York 3 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, now with their, they expanded, they are in the growth stage. Some of them are raising a Series A or Series B funding. And then I realized that the organic, I would say, growth of Israel Impact in New York is not only to support them first in different connections, why not to take it to the next level and to invest in these companies and continue to bring them value here in New York. And today I would say that companies are looking for value and not only for money. So if even if there is a great VC that would like to give the money, now they're looking for the value. And I think that at this point in time, I was in the right point in time here in New York when I started and I decided to invest in the companies because there are so much capital in the market these days, as you know. And I think that if I suggest to an entrepreneur that is here in New York, the founder, to put a small portion into the Series B round or Series A round next to Insight Partners or next to other great VCs. They're the lead investors, and then I'm reaching out. I'm putting small amounts. Small amounts, I meaning, in a round of between 20 to $30 million, I put an amount between 500K to $1 million. But the goal is to bring value because it doesn't need my money. It's a small amount. But for me, if I invest in this company, then I will put all my efforts in order to support these specific companies here in New York on the ground, as I supported hundreds of companies during the last 10 years. So, for example, I'll give one example. It's a company that I published that I invested in it. It's a Avo. Avo is a fast-growing company, I would say. Just closed $25 billion a few months ago. 20 Insight Partners were the lead investor, and I brought in a group of angel investors under my umbrella, and that's the way, by the way, I'm doing it. I don't have a VC, I don't have a fund. I have a large network of private investors, most of them Americans that are based here in New York. And to each investment from this group, I'm bringing the most relevant ones for the investments. So, for example, I invested in a Scenario. They are doing cyber in healthcare. I brought experts from the healthcare aspect. In Avo, the same people from the retail or real estate world. And another investments I made is in Anima app, which is in the DevOps vertical, a tool for developers and designers. And in that, I brought a relevant group specific for these investors, including, if you would like to say a few words about that.
No, I think that first of all, everything that you've been doing is everything is that you're doing is phenomenal, and both the companies that you're investing in is that they're amazing, and I'm very honored that you offered me to join in the investment group for an IMAP, and I have to say that the diligence process and the presentations and the thinking process that you've led the series of investors as well as yourself prior to making the decision does not shy that of any top-notch VC. So it's very impressive that you've managed to both take the agility and of the network that you have and of the private investor nature but then still bringing the deep diligence and the deep understanding to that same phenomenon. Now, Guy, I have to ask you. Looking back, how long has it been since you moved to New York?
Exactly 10 years ago.
Exactly 10 years ago. 10 years ago, was this a part of the goal to become an investor 10 years later, to lead this ecosystem, to be a focal point for Israelis in New York City and make phenomenal syndicates for some of the top companies? Was this where you were trying to head when you moved to New York?
Completely not. You will ask every Israel when he is relocating to New York for how long he's going to be. He will say you for you 2 3 years.
Yeah.
So so that was the goal, to be in EY 2 3 years and going back to Israel. But and I never imagined that I will do what I'm doing now. And more than that, when I built Israeli Map to New York, it was a platform that was not my day job. After that, I was at Sosa, and I'm telling you that if someone, when I created this platform, would tell me, yeah, in a few years from now, when I was in EY, 24/7 working on like crazy with a group that I manage, if someone would tell me now that in a few years Israel Impact New York will be my business and will be my main job. I would laugh because it started, but what is nice that it was growing like organically with me and with the ecosystem, and because it became like the nature fit. So it's exactly like a mirror of what's going on with the Israeli tech ecosystem here. So I didn't push it too much. I had my day job, and during the years I made some adjustments and fine tuning until the point I'm here now. And in 2022, I plan on making additional investments. But the investments are not the only thing I'm doing with Israel in New York. Still, in addition to the investments, there is a huge demand from VCs, from different Israeli entities, from service providers, even from companies. Everyone wants something here in New York. Connections to potential clients and corporates in the banking world, in the financial sector, insurance companies and banks. Some companies now, and by the way, the companies I invested in and some others, I thought that the main challenge would like to they will reach out to me to help them in sales, connections to potential clients. But all of them, the first thing they need, and also in addition to others, is talent. There is a competition today on the talent. Everyone raised so much money. You see that in Israel as well. I see it here in New York. It's the same because, invested in the companies that we mentioned before and others. The first thing I asked them, okay, how can I connect you to clients? They told me, first, we need great employees for A, B, C positions, and please help us in that, not in the sales. Of course, also in the sales, but our talent become a huge priority. And also, by the way, some other companies that I'm now in conversations in order to invest in them, and we are talking about the value I can bring them here in New York. For them as well, talent is the first priority. Huge competition.
Right, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Now, tell me, Guy, if you're looking towards the future and the vision, the greater idea of Israel in New York, how do you see this community running? What do you see happening? As we're moving forward and we're getting into a more globalized world, and Israel has a stronger presence in New York.
Yeah, so I would say that during the COVID time, we saw there was a few articles I read, in the Israeli media about the fact that Israeli founders don't need to relocate to the US anymore because they can work from Israel, they can grow the company. But I would say that nothing will replace the physical presence here in New York for the companies. Um, I can give you one example of Aura Air. It's an Israeli startup based here in New York. The founder relocated 2 months ago, Roy Fireberg, and he just told me that if he before, thought that he can manage it, can do it remotely and come from time to time, the impact of being here is dramatically, in his words, it's dramatically changing the way the company act. He's on the ground, 24/7. What in Israel you can do from Israel, here everything is like 20 minutes in the subway from every lead or every contact. So I think that sometimes it's like I would say convenient for some of the founders to say now it's a different world. I can do it from Israel. Nothing will replace. To your question, the globalization. It's there, but you have to be on the ground in order to succeed and scale in your business. There's no doubt about it.
Guy, well, I do want to say that we miss you here in Israel. So I hope that we find a balance at some point. But I couldn't agree more. And I think that me being there myself and experiencing a little bit of what you showed us from the community you're building there, you can feel the energy. You can feel the energy of the presence and the work that you're doing there, and obviously the track record and the companies you've invested in and will invest in. And I definitely hope to continue being a part of that journey as well. So thank you, Guy, for everything that you've done for the community. Incredible journey yourself. Very, I think, inspiring for anybody who's doing whatever they may be doing, but leveraging opportunities, having an open mind, seeing what's happening around, creating value, but really truly value. Because, like you're mentioning, it's not that extra $1 million you're adding to those rounds, which is a lot of money, but relative to the round. But really, it's the value that you bring, which in relative to the check size, that's huge. And I think that that's really awesome. So, Guy, thank you very, very much. Thank you for your time and stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you, Michael, for having me, and I hope to see you soon, not online, but offline.
100%. תודה רבה, Guy.